When you walk up to the vehicle with the key, it has the full proximity key system, and when you get to a certain point, it senses the key and it turns on the side light, which illuminates the ground, also the handle here, but no other lights turn on. Now when we hit the unlock button, the exterior lights turn on, headlights, tail lights. Some of the interior lights turn on as well, but we still have this approach light here. If we remote start the vehicle, go ahead and remote start it using the key. It starts up, so you can see some lights flashing there. But then it goes completely dark. There's no lights, interior or exterior lights when it's running. I have the headlight switched to the complete off position, and we have these super bright LED daytime running lights on right now. And I'll show them to you in a second, but I just want to show you that when you have the headlight switched to the off position, you still could potentially mistake these as headlights. You don't have any tail lights though. So the only way to turn these lights off is if you turn on the parking brake. But this allows you to drive the vehicle like this, thinking you might have your headlights on because they're so bright here. So let's switch to the parking lights. And the parking lights are quite a bit dimmer. It's the same lights, but they're much, much dimmer. And I don't know why when you put it on off, those lights are just super duper bright. It doesn't make any sense to me because a lot of people drive around with no tail lights because they think they have their headlights on. And they have their switch in the off position. So these are pretty cool looking DRLs, looking pretty nice, LEDs. There's also an amber side marker here on the front. There's a side marker here in the back in red, and the taillights kind of wrap around to the side. So you can kind of see them. They're red in color, looking pretty cool, red LEDs. They have a little accent here as well. Accent lights here in the back. It's pretty neat. Turn signal here in the front is an amber. It's fairly bright, and it has a lot of surface area here, so you can see it pretty good. It's right there above where the headlights will be. We'll show you that in a second. And then you can see the turn signal indicator here on the side mirror, and it has a nice light there on the front, kind of like an arrow. And then there's also one here on the side. All this can be seen from the front, the side, and the back. And then the turn signal here in the back is amber, and it's still in the headlight housing here, but it's a fairly decent position. Amber in color. Looking pretty good. Now the brake lights and the reverse lights. The reverse lights are there at the bottom. And so they're kind of more in the center, two of them, and they do a pretty decent job of illuminating behind the vehicle. Okay, so let's switch. There's the off position. Let's go to the actual headlights here so you can see the difference. The brightness is close to the vehicle instead of far away from the vehicle. So let's look at the low beams here. And it's a projector low beam. And you see there's one above the other. The lower portion is actually the high beams, and the upper portion is the low beams. This is basically just a projector tube there. And it's pretty cool. We'll look at it going down the road. There's some issues with the low beams and the high beams. I was kind of surprised. And the automatic high beams are usually Hyundai does a pretty good job with those, but this one does not work at all. All right, so if I dip down, these are about 2.5 feet off the ground. All right, so let's go to the high beams. Go ahead and there we go, high beams. So now the high beams add to the low beams. So you see separate lights, separate projectors here. And then that way you're adding to the light, you're not just refocusing it. So it has, you can see two of them there. So now those are all the lights on. So you have the kind of accent light now, daytime running light, which kind of turns into an accent light, and then you have the low and the high beams. This cargo light is, it's okay. It's funny because a vehicle like this, they just have the single light here, and it's okay. It shines right here in the center, but you can tell there's lots of dark areas. So dark all in here, And, you know, I mean, there's just shadows everywhere, depending on what you have. But overall, it's kind of interesting because it actually does a decent job because of the brightness. So while usually this type of setup is poor, and I think it still is poor, it definitely could be better. But it's not as aggravating as some other ones, you know, it's because of the brightness of that light. It's kind of interesting because the third row is like completely dark. So you can see this whole entire, there's some controls over there that are backlit, but there's no like dome light back here at all. Very odd that there's no light back here. The only light, like the cargo light should come on or something to illuminate that area. But the cargo light only comes on when I open up the hatch there. So very interesting. Now you can reach up. There is a switch on it if you want to turn it on, but you know, if you want to have it turn on with the door, it just doesn't do that. Very strange. The inside of the back door, there's no puddle lights, there's no pocket lights or anything like that. All this is dark. The only thing we have is a window switch that's illuminated, but there's also an accent light here, an ambient light that turns off when you open up the door apparently, but it does have it. I'll show you that when we get inside. You can see it there on the dash. But for some reason, when you open the door, the accent lights turn off on the doors. And then you can see the lights here, basically right there in the center, illuminates in the center of the second row. Back row is completely dark for some reason, but we do have, you know, a little bit of light here, not all that great. Then there's some backlit buttons here for the climate control and stuff. But down here is some power inverter, 12-volt power supply, both dark. But this is all backlit illuminated. The inside of the front door, there's no puddle lights or anything like that. No pocket lights. Do have backlit buttons here, and of course that accent light will turn on when you shut the door. The lights here are coming from the center, and they shine in the center part. There's also a light under here as well. I don't know if you can see that compartment light, which is pretty cool. It's kind of hard to get to that compartment. It's like, let's put storage space down next to your ankles, you know, like it's kind of or your knees. It's kind of a weird spot to put stuff. So this is what it looks like with the door open, the interior lights. And you can see the door, when I shut it, the ambient light turns on. And it kind of illuminates some areas. It's kind of somewhat functional as far as the light when you have it turned up bright like this. It's pretty neat looking. And so maybe that's why they didn't put any other lights here on the door, I guess. There's some backlit buttons here. Here on the steering wheel. There's the gauges. There's a screen. All these backlit buttons here. This compartment does have a light in it. So this is where you have cup holders, a little storage area, and a wireless charger, USB port, that kind of stuff. Turn on the interior light so you can see what you're looking at. So you can see there it does have a little bit of a light there. It does help out a little bit. This center console is completely dark. Let me turn on the interior lights so you can see no light in there. Kind of odd. Not all that good. Let's take a look at the glove compartment. Yeah, there's a light in the glove compartment. Kind of surprised at this point. But yeah, nice bright light there. So yeah, this is pretty good. Now, there's a couple, that compartment down there is, you know, like I said, it's kind of hard to see from my angle. So maybe from this angle you can kind of see it. It does have some lights in there. So that's good. I wish they had it in the center console. It's very odd. Okay, so up here, there's the rear view, the rear camera. Instead of rear view mirror, which you do have the rear view mirror, but you also have the rear view camera, and that works really, really good at night and day. Same thing with the camera system here. Go ahead and turn that on. So you can see, whoa, camera's blowing it out. Turn the brightness down here. So yeah, you can see the lines good, and you see all the way around. All right, there's reverse. There's drive, and you see the different views there. Up here, we have some lights, and it's actually illuminated, so the button to turn on the interior lights is illuminated, which is good. And then you have these little reading lights here and here, which illuminate it. It's kind of like in your lap area. Then, of course, you have other ones there that are backlit. And then the visor has a mirror, which also has a light, which turns on when you open the mirror. So it's pretty cool. The heads-up display or head-up display, however you want to say it, looks really good, day or night. It's a little bit on the dim side, even when I turn it up the brightness really high, but it's still easy on the eyes. It's not distracting, it has relevant information, and just really well done head-up display. The side mirrors do have the auto dimming function, so depending on your situation, if there's light or whatever, right now it just went away for some reason, but it does have the auto dimming side mirrors, as well as this mirror here if you don't have the camera on. The dimmer switch for the interior gauges has a lot of adjustment, so you can see the bar right here. It says illumination when I move it. So let's go all the way to the bottom, right there, and it's not just the gauges, it's a lot of lights. So as I go forward, you can see it gets very bright, very bright. That's 100% right there. So there's 50%, and then let's go down to 1. Basically goes all the way down to 1, and then there's 100. So that, yeah, it gets super bright, everything does. So let me bring that back down. Really, a comfortable level will be like 20, something like that. Okay, so we're going to setup right here, and then we go to vehicle. We scroll down to where it says lights, ambient light. And then we can have the brightness adjustment here. I have it on 10. That's that purple light you see. You can adjust the brightness all the way to off. Go all the way to 10. You can also change the color. So it has different colors here. Polar white, moon white, ice blue, ocean blue, jade green, orchid green, freesia yellow, sunrise red, aurora purple, lightning violet, which we originally had. And then you can customize a color. So if you go right here to custom color, set custom color, you can set what you want. So let's go like the hot pink or whatever. Now we go to, when we choose custom color, that'll be the one that we had previous set up. But I like this purple color, or the lightning violet actually is the one I like. Looks pretty cool. But all of them look good. So here's the headlight pattern on this fence. And it has this shadow. I don't know if you can see that shadow there. But the shadow is intended to be on the oncoming lane while you're driving. So it's kind of like this little notch that as you're going up and down hills, it has a little bit of a extra space there, I guess, to avoid blinding oncoming drivers. But this particular vehicle, that shadow, more often than not, stays in my lane. It's supposed to be a little bit more to the left. So the headlights probably need to be adjusted or something on this particular vehicle. But we'll see how it goes. Also, the automatic high beams are terrible. Like there'll be a car like right there in front of me and it'll turn on the high beams, that kind of stuff. So I just turn that off because it's just unreliable and to some degree dangerous. Okay, so you can see that shadow right now is actually lined up fairly well on the oncoming lane. We don't have hardly any shadow in my lane. It is a little bit, but it's supposed to be, more so in that lane. There's a lot of times where, just a shadow right in front of the vehicle. All right, so you can see it's doing its job. We can see the road. We can see the side of the road. And these aren't like super bright headlights, but they do the job. Now, I would say kind of, medium, not bad, but, not excellent or anything like that. Okay, so there's the low beams. Now I'm going to switch to the high beams. And the high beams are pretty good. In most scenarios, the high beams work really good. But you'll notice there's the low beams. You know, I mean, they're okay. But the high beams, they're adding the same brightness. So it's an additional light that adds to the low beams, which is good. Because we just don't have that much. The lights aren't super bright. So even when the automatic high beams, you know, like shine to other cars, the other cars didn't flash me back, you know, like they are bright, but they're not overly bright where it's, I mean, they're not, I think they could be brighter is what I'm saying. They're not that bright, but they do like a minimum system requirements job of the headlights. The fill is really good though, like the filling in of the ground all the way up into the trees and everything. I think it does a good job. It's fairly evenly lit considering you have 4 projectors that are overlapping the light. There's not a lot of patchiness going on other than that ridiculous shadow. And yeah, they do a good job. And the height is actually important. Like right now we're just on kind of flat roads, very, very little hills here. But if you had more of a steeper hill, that additional height for the high beams can come in handy. So you can see there's a little bit of, you know, separation there, but you know, between the low beams and the high beams as far as shadows sometimes on certain scenes, certain views when we're going up and down hills. But you know, it does a good job as far as on level ground like this. You can kind of be the judge. I'm kind of like thinking these could be better, but at the same time they're working okay. So I'm right in the middle of, you know, saying it's hard to complain about them when they're doing the job, but at the same time I think they could have been a little bit better. Let me know what you think. Hopefully you can see this in the video accurately. I have the brightness turned up quite a bit on the camera, so you know, it may look brighter than what they are. So, and that's sometimes a problem because I mean I have to turn the brightness up for you to see the pattern. If you actually saw it the way I saw it, then you know, when you play it on your phone or whatever, you're not going to really the videos can be hardly worth watching. You know, it'd be too dark or whatever. But at least you get a general idea of what they look like, and also, you know, my opinion about them. So hopefully this video has been helpful.